And tonight we are very proud to have with us Michael Cooper, who is a graphic artist and fine artist, and is the person who designed our poster and flyer for the series. And I think he did a great job, and I completely owe you a big time for this.
Thank you for having me, Suman.
Here.
Just met Suman a few months ago at an art lecture talk with another gentleman that's speaking next week, so that's how we just met. And all this stuff happened right away, and we designed a poster, and all this happened so quickly, right? And now we're doing the talk. So, as Suman said, this is the poster I helped with, and this is my name. I'll tell you a little bit about myself so you know what I do and you know where I come from. I pretty much do art full-time. I do it as a full-time job. I work right in Flemington as a creative director for a company called Mediatech Foundation, right on Royal Road. I do catalogs, I do their website, I do their advertisements, I do all that stuff. And I also have a pretty busy full freelance business called Cooper Graphics. And everything I'm showing tonight is related to my Cooper Graphics business and also to my fine art. When I'm not doing commercial artwork, my full-time job or my freelance job, I'm doing fine artwork as well. I paint and I do sculpture work. Oh, just to back up there, so I went to Montclair State, I went to School of Visual Arts, I went to Pratt, and so forth, and I already spoke about the jobs that I have done. Just to show you real quickly, I just want to show you some of my fine art stuff that I work by hand, and then we'll get some computer stuff. Again, I do watercolors as well, I do some more traditional stuff. This is something called silver point here, where I actually use a piece of silver onto like paper that's coated with like a clay surface, and you sort of like scratching in there rather than using actual pencil. And this is watercolors. Actually, the computer gets involved in this sense because what I did, I got a real shad fish that we bought at Metropolitan Seafood, and we haven't been there yet. And I took it home and we cut it open, and I did different things with it. And I did digital images with that. And then after that, I had it on my computer, and I sort of composed what I wanted to do. And then I had this image, I printed that out, and I used that as my basis for painting.
That was a real fish.
That's a real fish, right? A shad.
That's actually.
Are you guys familiar with the Shad Fest down in Lambertville? They have it every year.
That's what Da Vinci did. He took apart real people
like that,
and.
Yeah. Right. Similar here. This wasn't cut open, but we did cut it.
It's
open.
true.
I have photos that are actually cut open with the grove coming out too, but I didn't paint those parts.
Does the color hold up?
I'm sorry. I'll go back. I'm sorry.
The fish, is that basically the color it is, or when it dies, does the color change?
Well, I should say the truth. It's a little bit redder, obviously, because it's a dead fish and there's some blood on it. So that's how I painted it. What I saw. So it's probably a little bit redder spots. But actually, over here, I mean, that's pretty. That's realistic here. It has some gold tint. And I do a lot of medical illustration work. And again, this is where a computer gets involved for me, because this is all generated on a computer. Again, as we go downstream here, I'm going to show you more how I develop these and how I draw them from scratch. Again, medical illustration work that I do as well. A lot of my work, I work with physicians or with PhDs, different colleges, doing illustration work for them. This is for a surgical procedure. This is probably based on probably about 10 drawings, but this is just one of them to show like different stages of an operation. This is for advertising agency, again, done on computer. All these pieces are done on computer with different software. We'll talk about that a little bit later. This is for advertising agency, for contact lenses. I do brochures as well, again, generated on a computer, where I manipulate sometimes, as you can see here, that's actually my hand. I did a photo of my hand, and I brought that into Photoshop, and I gave it some kind of sort of like a softening to it, and I made it all blue, and then I textured out this drawing on top of it. Looked like it was like rolling over the hand. This is a piece that I did for a hair salon. Again, I used some stock photo here, and I also manipulated some coloring and so forth with the logo. I do advertisements. A lot of times, again, downstream later, we'll talk more about stock photography, but I use stock photography a lot. The client will just give me some text, and I do the text, and I try to come up with an idea that goes with that text. And I'll look for stock photography that fits that pretty well. Here, another advertisement. These go to, you ever see Natural Awakening magazines? You see them in health stores. All these ads are for that. I do banner ads, logos, again, Photoshop. These are all separate glasses. And they were plain glasses. I added the color in there to make them look wet and frosty. and then I put them all together as one composite. If you're familiar with Photoshop, you can do a lot of layers are involved. And I have a slide coming up later that'll show that as well. And I've done about 50, 60 labels for this one person that makes these different types of drink mixes and dips. And these are the final pieces here. And what this means here, if you haven't seen it before, this means it's going to press to a printer. And these are registration marks. And this gets printed in 4-color. And that's what this is all about on the edges here. It doesn't get printed with this. This is just for registration purposes. Because when they print in C, Y, and K, you know, the 4 colors, and they have to overlay them and get lined up together. Printer separation, I guess. Again, advertisements, using photos, covers for medical journals. I do all the illustration work in the middle. Again, sometimes I use photos and I illustrate, so in the background there's a lot of clouds and grass, so why would I want to draw that when I can stock photography? And then I take that part, I gave it the lightning bolt in there that they wanted to use, and I draw these insects down in here. These are all the parts that I illustrated here. And then I composite it all together. This I did draw the whole piece, and I can show you how I did it. This is for a website. And what it does is you click on these different buttons here with different buildings, and it takes them to different locations on the website. And the way I do that is I draw a line drawing first. I use a program called Adobe Illustrator, and I draw the line. So it's still very manual. And I always laugh when people say you did it on the computer. They think, well, okay, the computer did it. They actually say that sometimes, and I said, no, not really. You know, it's still a person behind the computer that has to do the work. So, I mean, it's still a lot of work involved. I had to draw my perspective point, my vanishing points, and so forth. So I get that 3D reality. And I put that together. Same situation here. If you saw the original of this, it's a lot of line work, and I also had to do research. I don't know a lot about trains, so I had to look at a lot of photos about trains. There's one coming up, which I'll show you. Buses, I had to learn about buses. These are medical illustrations, also done, but again, if you saw the originals, there's always line art behind that. Before I can do any kind of painting, I create a mask, basically, that I fill in. I had to do a lot of these truck drawings. There's about 9 of them with all the different elements inside the trucks. You know, all the braking systems. A lot of times I like to really have the objects in front of me when I'm doing product illustration, but I can't obviously have these pieces. They're too huge to have on my desk at home. So I had to do a lot of photo research, and the client gave me hundreds of photos, so I had to learn about what these braking systems look like, because you know, you just can't tell, so I had to learn about that before I even could draw it. Line art. A lot of logo designs, again, done outside on the computer. Coming up, I'll show you some more about logos, about how it's useful on the computer. These are business card designs. Book illustrations that I do for different publishers. These books have hundreds of illustrations in them. I can't imagine doing them by hand, you know, the old-fashioned way, which we'll talk about again coming up. It would be so cumbersome. I can't even imagine doing it that way now. Again, this is actually hand-painted, but I just thought I'd show it because actually a computer did get involved, because I redrew this logo on the computer, which is a very intricate logo. So to make it easy for me to paint these on these boxing gloves, again, I redrew it on the computer, I printed it out, I did a stencil retracing onto the glove, and I painted it, because otherwise it would have been too difficult, so a computer was involved in that as well. And again, because of technology, I can work with basically anybody right now. Most of my clients, I don't even see them or even speak to them. Probably about 80% of my clients right now, I never even spoke or met. I just deal with them via the internet, you know, via emails and so forth. I have 2 clients in Spain right now I do work for, all over the country, even local people. When I showed you those labels before, I did like 60 labels, those drink mixes. I never even met that person yet, and she lives about 2 miles from me. We just all through communication online. You can appreciate now by knowing where you have been. So in my case, since I'm a little older, I haven't done everything on the computer. Earlier on in the 80s and even late 80s, you know, stuff was done, they're called mechanicals, where things, let me go back a second, I'm sorry. As you can see here, you did artwork and you had to post it on boards by waxing. She has a waxing machine here. And type is coming up here, working on boards and drawing circles. I had to use templates and rapidographs to do that. You know, now in the program, if I want to draw a circle, well, I have tools my little toolbox there, where I can just draw a circle, I can make an ellipse, I can make it any size I want. And these are the kind of things that I can draw by having those tools. And if I wanted to scale things in the past, well, I had to use a scaling wheel like this and write down and put down a number. I say I want to scale it 20% or 50%. And then I would have to tell a photographer to take a picture for me and scale it that much. Well, now I don't have to do that. Obviously, right on my computer, I can just take an object and scale it, type in a number, I can skew it. If I don't want it to be concentric scale, I can offset it if I needed it to. Also, you're involved in a lot more chemicals and hazardous material. You know, benzene is very dangerous, and we used to use this stuff all the time. You know, rubber cement glue. I think I was allergic to this stuff. I still use this, actually, spray glue. And also chemicals for developing. I said about scaling before. All those photos, that's called photostats, when you had to have a photo, you know, recreated, or, you know, resize, they had to do chemical processing all the time. You know, those ShopRite circulars, I used to freelance for a company that did the ShopRite circulars, and we would work all night, like 24 hours a day, you know, just getting those little ads together, like little pictures didn't fit, you would have to have the photographer or the stack camera person resize it, and everything, and put, you know, redo it. And also airbrushing was a hassle, but now, obviously on the computer, it's simple. Right? That's in Photoshop there. Typesetting. You would have a special typesetter. If I want to type, I would have to order type from a typesetting company, you know, that I want to put into my document when I was making my mechanical. If I was doing an ad, right, everything was coming from all different locations. This is just a specimen of a type font. You know, now here, like if I was doing that Sweet Talk poster, I can go in here. I have thousands of typefaces on my computer. So I can just look through typefaces that I like. I type down here, like the word that I see down here, I type it. And as I scroll through the type fonts here, I get to see what it's going to look like. Because every type font has a different feeling to it. You know, certain type fonts wouldn't make sense. You wouldn't use this typeface on like a lawyer's business card, right? Probably not. It wouldn't make sense. And also with type on the computer, all type is actually outlined. Nobody probably realizes that, but a type's called vector, and you can actually turn it back into vector in certain applications, and I can manipulate it. See, like on the letter T here, see how it's all outlined in blue? I'm able to take those points from the T and extend it if I wanted to look that way. So it's a lot more flexibility with type. At the same time, I don't think people, because everybody has fonts on their computer, everybody in this room has computers, and you have hundreds of fonts on your computers as well, probably, and you know, a typographer really appreciates fonts, and I think maybe that's something that is getting lost because of technology, I think. But again, you can also design your own typefaces on computers. There's software on computers where you can make your own fonts, and you can save it and make it a typeface, and you can actually type it on your keyboard.
You had a Toca Boca banner there. What was that? Or a,
Which one? I'm sorry, go back.
yeah, on the right side, that mouth.
Oh, but that's about, I'm sorry, this is just from a website. I should explain what that's from. That's actually not something that I made. That's actually just from a website. I was just pointing out the part about typography. I'm not sure what that's about. Do you know what
Okay.
that's from?
Yeah.
Oh, you do?
Yeah.
Okay, what is that from?
That's an app. I reviewed that.
Oh, okay.
Software.
Oh, okay. So this is from this website. There's a website called I Love Typography, and that's where that's from. Anyway, just to talk about that, you can create your own fonts. So all that stuff that I showed you is all basically on my desktop, seriously, right? And even more probably. I don't have to have a person do my typesetting for me anymore. I don't have to have, you know, a photographer. I do use photographers for certain purposes, but not always. But I can do my own photos. This computer actually has a camera built into it if I wanted to use it for that purpose. It has a video camera built in as well. And all my applications, or most of my applications are these guys here, Adobe Illustrator. This is Dreamweaver when I design websites. InDesign when I do page layout. Photoshop, photo retouching, or photo compositing. Flash is for doing animation. Acrobat everybody knows about and uses for portable document files. And again, it's so convenient to have everything at my fingertips now. I have such access to a large library of things. This is one client. And these are all my folders of all different projects I've done for that one client, from business cards to brochures to their website and quotes. So, you know, it makes me much more versatile as an artist, as a graphic artist in this case. And because the computer is so much faster, it saves me so much more time. I can be more creative, right? I can get more done. Design time versus my build time or my productivity time. And less time, I get more done. And I become more productive and more creative in less time. And obviously, this presentation was all on computer as well, this 3 and then PowerPoint. My toolbox is larger now, more streamlined. It makes an artist more versatile, as I said, and more self-efficient. I don't have to rely on having a typesetter and also need people involved. You know, and it's more fun for me. Just, I like to be self-sufficient. I don't like to rely on too many people. That way I know I can get things done faster. Multi-usage, hands-on for everything. Sort of reiterating what I'm saying. But still, you need to know your tools. You know, whether it's manual or digital, you still need to know what you're doing. Computer usage. Okay, so what I'm going to do next, I'm going to talk about my commercial art, and then after that, my fine art, and how I use computers to help develop those pieces. So I do some photo retouching for people. So on the left, obviously, is the older piece. On the right is the modified piece. So I can use tools like cloning, as you might have heard about. That's one tool where I can go over here and clone an area over the infected area over here and modify it so it's unmessed up. So you can see the difference here of those two. Photo compositing in Photoshop. If you heard the word layers before, layers is very powerful. You can overlay images and images. You know, sometimes I work in documents and I have 100 layers on that, but it gives me so much flexibility. So here I started out with just the background, that's stock photography. And I just a silly little thing, I do these birthday cards for, actually just for like a neighbor, it's not really a client, but it's just a good example to show. So she's having this dog party, and I had 12 dogs to put in this picture. So those are just set together, but actually I did one at a time, and I put them on the background. And then I gave him these hats, and then I gave him dirty legs, and then we called it the Dirty Dozen.
There you go.
And then we added dog tags. And that's like a trifold that gets folded up. And this is just the inside of the card, the outside was something else. And so this is how this is done. So I'm talking about the layers. You can see just there, that's just like the mud layer there, the background layer. The tank is a separate layer too, actually. And there's a couple of the dogs, and you can see all the layers here. And see, some have little eyeballs, some that you can see from there, but the eyeballs mean they're displaying, and if they don't, they're not showing. And so the dogs actually look like this originally. So I had all these dogs, and I had to take them, I had to called silhouetting them. I had to knock out the background. By knocking out the background, that's when I can manipulate them and put a different background behind
I
them.
like them by the pool.
Like them by the pool.
Did you have to draw yourself around them? Or
I draw around them, yeah, that's how I normally do it. A lot of people, there's different tools for doing that. Here, I think I might just start showing it here. It's called, they're called paths. And I actually have a pen tool where I draw around it. It's very tedious, yeah, but I do that. You can use an eraser tool, but it depends on the object. You know, obviously with the dog, it's kind of furry, right? So you have to be, you want to look that furry, so I try to keep some of that fur in there. And I might use the eraser a little bit too, to keep that furriness look to it. If it's a hard object, then the path tool with straight lines is much easier. And that's again the final piece. Yes, somebody came to me with something on their website. They had a bottle, but had the wrong label on it, so they needed a new label. So I go to Photoshop, I take out the label. Then I have another program where I can create three-dimensional wraps. So I make another cylinder, like here, and I take that, I had a label here, and I take that flat label and I put it on the cylinder, which is flat again, but in the 3D world, I can wrap it around. The cube is symbolizing that 3D world, and also you can see up here in this wire, it's called a wireframe.
What program is that?
That's Adobe Illustrator. Adobe Illustrator has a 3D part to it. And then I take it, and obviously I put it in here. That's the new label popped in there. So I wrapped it around an invisible object, then I bring that invisible wrap piece, that label that I made, and put it in Photoshop on a layer on top of that.
So it was for a website or something?
That was just a photo for a website, yeah. It could have been for anything, no, it could have been for a brochure, but that particular
Right.
case was for a website.
So they had originally done it with the wrong...
Yeah, either that or maybe she had another bottle, another product that she wanted the same label, a different label on the same. I have to forget what the reason was, but yeah. But if it was wrong, yeah, that's that's another way.
But you can print your own concert tickets or your,
I guess so,
your
yeah.
own, whatever you need. I could use a couple $100 bills after.
Something else I do on the computer called caricatures, where sometimes I get photos from people like this, and they want to put it on a different body for maybe a presentation or for a brochure or some type of marketing medium. So I'll take it, I might do a sketch of it a little bit, and I'll recreate it on the computer. If you noticed before, that one was a little clapping, had a little animation on that one. Did you see her clapping before? If I go back, maybe she'll come back and clap. Let me see her.
Oh, yeah.
So I animate her by having like for just 3 frames. I just have her arms like going like this, and I go back and forth 3 times, and then you loop it. By looping it, it creates a little animation effect. Also, what's nice about the computer now, if I'm doing a newsletter for somebody, it can also make it, if it's a printed piece, they might want to go online with it now. They want to make an email version of this. It's hard to see from here, but this is all black right now. On the next one, you're going to see now that the text is blue in locations. What I did, I made those hyperlinks. So they can click on those little blue sections now in their email. So this was used 2 ways. It's printed where they mailed it, and then for other people, they emailed it to them. Then they can open up into their email. I think I did this for Surian too for the Mediatech. And then if they click on a link, it might bring them to a website or wherever they wanted to go to. And this is another example there of doing newsletters for online purposes as well, with links in there. Back to the logos, what's nice again with the computer, if I had a logo idea, basically in the older days, I guess you could say, if I come up with 1 or 2 ideas, I had to do it all by hand or airbrush or whatever I had to do. Maybe I come up with 1 or 2 columns. Now if I do one, I say I want to change the font. Well, I just change the font. I can change the font again. I want to make it a circle. I want to make it a circle with text on the bottom. I want this look. I can just keep modifying looks over and over and over, and I can have these done so quickly. Rather than taking days, I can get this done, in a few hours.
So does the client then end up with decision paralysis?
Well, yeah, I have to be careful too. Well, this what I'm looking at here may be something that I just looked at. I may not have given the client all these. Because you're right, if I give the client too many, it's dangerous because, the more they look at, that's going to be more my problem because they're going to have a harder time to decide. So I have to be careful what I give them. But for my own thinking, I have more options to choose from. That's a good question. Again, here as well, I come up with different, this is for a home inspector, brass tack, home insurance. I think I did show them all these. I think you picked this one over here. Here's an example where a client had a logo, this is in Morristown Airport, where they want to use it for different purposes. If you're printing on paper, that's one thing, but if you're printing on a t-shirt, if you're printing on a truck, if you're printing on glasses, the files need to be created differently. Also, they wanted a color version, so I was able to supply them with different color versions. So I'm able to do this pretty quickly on a computer. I just able to, everything's in separate components, so I just select these different elements and change the colors, and I color inside. Now this week they actually wanted to put it on a glass, engraving in glass, so I had to do like just a simple black and white version of it as well. So that's sort of showing it up in here. Well, the client gives me a lot of metal illustrations, will give me something they might have done, sort of rough, and they'll come back to me and they want something, that they want to put into a publication. Actually, my wife is a scientist. She helps me a lot because she's able to give me tips on technology. I'm not a scientist, so I don't know sometimes when the clients are explaining medical terms, so it helps. So we did this more as a graph type of look, and the client was really happy with that. Again, the client gives me a rough sketch, and I redraw it. I'm using programs like Photoshop and Illustrator. I'll show you that here. Again, I do my line work in Adobe Illustrator, which is more of a vector program. I'll explain what I mean by vector and rasterizing a little later. And then I'll airbrush it and Photoshop it to give some more 3D quality. That's a fallopian tube and an egg and a blood vessel and some cells. And then I'll do my text back in Illustrator, and then I overlay it all together, to come up with this piece here. I add some shadows. I always like to add shadows to things. It helps them give them pop a little bit. Again, the client gave me something rough. I did use some of the photos that you see. I took the photos and recropped them in Photoshop. The square amount, I like things to be nice and clean and even. And then all I had to do was draw this center again, fallopian tube again, with an egg and a cancer cell, some cancer over here. Again, some of the client. and that's what I come up with again. I have to look at their work, translate what they tell me on the phone or in emails, and regenerate it on the computer. And these are all for, again, for medical publications. You know, you see them like you see here, like Cell Magazine and things like that. And this is all my freelance work, so this is not my full-time job, so I do a lot of stuff in my full-time job too. Again, something from the client, again, final product. Oh, just to show, let me go back here. So you see these elements here, so I come up with these little components here, like mitochondria here and some cells. But back, you know, before I even get to that point, what's here, nice. I create like a library of elements that I use there. So I start out, and I'm gonna change the colors. You know, so I create this little file called building blocks, you know, where I can draw from. So it's nice to have that you know, to create those little parts, but you can use them. Sometimes you can use them for other projects, you know. If I have another client that needs some mitochondria, I can go here. I might change it somewhat, but I can pull from that. So I can create libraries of work. So the more you work and the more you create, you build up one library. Again, the client can come to me with changes they might want to have on a diagram. Again, just via email, gives it to me, and I go back and I change it. Again, this was actually modified much further than that. So. This part has to do about actions and batching. Let's say if I had something that I had to do a lot of, especially for websites. You know, websites, it's very critical that you want to make photos small in size. You don't want to take up memory because you want to download fast, right? So let's say I had 100 photos of mice or whatever it was, and I want to make them smaller. I create an action. In Photoshop, for example, I can create an action, and give it a name, and then I record that action. You know, I say image size. I go up to you can't see everything here, but there's an image size, and I want to scale it, say, by 50%, and I save that action. And then I open up something called batch processing, and I select the folder that has the 100 big ones in it, and I just run the batch, and it makes all 100 photos smaller, and saves them for me. So I can do that in minutes. It means me doing one at a time would take me, you know, a couple of hours. I can do all that in actually literally 2 minutes. Again, for research purposes, I had to illustrate this bag. It's like an expandable bag, so I used my wife again as a model here, so I get the right angle. I went to some stock photography also to look for some heads for hair and so forth. And I started compositing it. I did a line drawing, like a flat line drawing of that. And then I got a little deeper into it by showing muscle, showing the spine, or showing the area where this is affecting here, this bag. And then that's the final piece there where I, you know, I'm sorry, go back. Did the hair more illustrated. This is for this company that makes these bags, and it's sliced here, cut so they can show on their advertisements, you know, how this piece works. And there's also some cold air, like a cold pack in here to show that this coldness coming in. Again, this is actually for the same customer for an advertising agency that I work for, where they gave me this lumbar support bag, which I took it. I cut it open, then I took some digital images of it. I did a line drawing of it, and then I colored it in a flat, just black and some colors. And then I brought that into Photoshop, and I rendered it a little bit further, you know, gave it sort of a transparent look. And this actually went on the product bag, you know, when they sold the product, you know, just to show people that there's a pump inside. And here are the positive and negative, so let the air in and out. Again, this is a little fun project I did with somebody, again, but just show you again how I start out again with the line drawing again. And then I put some flat color in there. And then this is for a wine label, just for a fun thing for somebody, again, that was just making wine. But again, this is also, everything's illustrated here except the dogs. Those are real dogs, where I did them, took them in Photoshop, and I cut out parts of them and I put them inside the drive in the car. I mentioned vector and rasterizing before. Actually, a lot of people ask me about this, so I figured I'd just show it, you know, whether it applies here or not, I'm not sure. But vector, like, is an illustrator where you can do sharp lines. And vector is resolution independent, so if something's vector, I can put it on the size of a blimp or the size of a stamp, and it would change resolution. If it's rasterizing Photoshop, and a lot of people think that they can use Photoshop for everything. They can type reports in Photoshop, but no, you wouldn't want to do that. But people do that. But it's not resolution independent, it's dependent, because if it's a certain resolution and you scale it up, you're gonna see here it starts getting fuzzy on the edges. So if you want to print something this size, you want to keep it this size in Photoshop. Then you can size it up a little bit, but you can't make it like a big poster. It's going to get blurry and out of focus looking. So if you got to know what your final product's going to be. Again, product illustration, where I take a real product, take my digital shot of it. Makes it easier for me too, because then basically I have something to trace, and I'm able to draw. That's an air ratchet I'm able to draw. Is for a T-shirt. Again, I use computers for some of my clients for educational purposes as well. This is for instructional purpose, for something scientific, where I can actually animate things. As I click, you can see the little dots move on the bottom, showing the different stages and different elements moving in, different things moving. So I can't even imagine, years ago we used to just do slides. People would have this presentation and the slide carousel. Now we can do much more, animation and so forth. And I'm just showing you a couple simple things here. Again, where things can move. And then the text changes on the right, so the instructor, as he's teaching the class, he can go step by step. And this actually corresponds to a book. Remember I showed you the books earlier. These illustrations were like an amendment or part of the book, and they went on to a website where students can look at them, where instructors can use them for teaching purposes, and so forth. This is a piece I did for a client at Rutgers. He does stuff for vision research. And these are pieces, these are wall-mounted pieces laying down here, but actually, if you actually looked at this piece, it's built in reverse perspective, meaning whatever's closer to you is further back as it's built, whatever's furthest back is built closest. So you get the contradiction of the way it's built into the way it's painted. And actually, when you're looking at it, it actually moves. You can't see it here, but if there was one in this room and you walk back and forth, it would move. And so we made this little animation so he can show people what's actually happening. So as the eye's moving, they think that this piece is moving, even though it's really not. It's an illusion. And again, there's another illusion piece I did for him as well, where we try to hide the letters by different techniques. It actually says one aim up here. You can't see the one. Again, this room's a little bright in here. What's happening in here is the letters, because of the manipulation of the lines in there and the colors, you can't really read it. And I have another piece here, and I brought some glasses if anybody wants to play, but this is a 3D piece I did. I'll just I need these back. Let's circulate them around. So if you don't look with the glasses, it looks out of focus, because it's in 3D. If you ever go through a 3D movie, don't wear the glasses for a minute and take them off. The screen's going to look out of focus, because the 3D is accomplished by offsetting colors. So in Photoshop, again, I have control of the color layers. They're called channels. So I can take the red channel and skew it. By skewing those, by skewing them to different degrees, you can create different levels of 3D. I mean, if you look at certain parts here, certain parts are going to pop out a little bit more. I think this gold pops out more than some other pieces. So that's how you accomplish that. And this is actually what's for an agency that they wanted this, and I created it for them. And they actually supplied everybody with the brochure, those glasses, so they can do it. It just shows you what they would do sometimes, to spend money on marketing. Again, for teaching purposes, I can do stuff in steps. I have a client that likes a lot of stuff in steps, so when he's doing his talk, he'll talk about one thing, then say, okay, I'll talk about this, and then he'll go to that step, and so forth. Somebody had a cartoon. I didn't draw the one on the left, but I drew it on the right and added color to it. They wanted to put it up in their office. So that was something from a magazine or something like that. I'm always careful that this wasn't something that was going to be produced, because obviously that's copyrighted, that thing on the left, so I wouldn't have done that. It was just something that was going to be put in someone's office hanging up. Again, I do document enhancing for people. They may do something in Word, and then on the left, and then I will create it on the right. And again, I'm always a believer in visuals. I'm a visual artist, that's what I do, so I always like to stick some type of artwork in there. Or again, I use stock photography a lot for something You know, a client can't pay for me to illustrate things all the time. I'll get stock photography and incorporate that in there. Again, something on the left, you know, and then I'll take it on the right, add the keyboard, try to make it a little more interesting, add the logo on the keyboard, just to make it a little bit nicer than the one on the left. That's the plan. Website, just to show you fast, you know, again, collaboration of things can be done differently on websites. You know, buttons don't always have to be like this. I try to change things around, so I go back to that one in a second. You know, add news section, but again, because of computers, you know, I talk about Dreamweaver as my web application, but I use Photoshop a lot for the graphics, Illustrator for doing, you know, the logos. And again, here's a case where rather than have little buttons on the top, you know, you can do things by having like a book here, and you can click on this different text here and go to those pages on the website. And behind here is something called image maps, you know, where you dedicate a certain range of pixels back here where they would click on, and that becomes the link.
You did that in Dreamweaver?
The artwork was done in Photoshop, but the linking was done in Dreamweaver.
And did you...
Remember, Dreamweaver isn't an application you would draw in, you would just
Did you teach yourself all of it, most of this, or all
I
of
teach
it?
of a lot of it myself, but I was educated more like on high-end stuff, actually, like at School of Visual Arts, I did like Unix programming and C programming, actually. And then now I use a Mac.
That was back in the 90s.
Right, back in the
Right.
late 80s, actually.
Well, that's very, very impressive.
Nice. And again, there's your social media stuff. Go back again. Again, a lot of everybody wants their social media stuff, so I add links to the social media parts on it as well. And same thing down here as well. And videos. Well, you talk about YouTube and so forth, and I also have a page on here for her see her videos, and also a link to her YouTube page as well. Okay, now real quick, I'll look at some of my fine art stuff. How do I get computers involved in my fine art? My final pieces are not done on the computer. I like to do stuff by hand, but I use the computer to help maybe like gain my final piece, in some cases, not always. So I did this watercolor on the left here of the mill over at Holland Township. That's a watercolor. So I went on the web, you know, I went up there as well and took photos, which I'll show, but I also went on the web to look at the mill again as well. And also I went up there, took a digital image of that piece, and that's sort of related to that piece there. It's kind of falling apart now, and that's how I painted it. I might come up with a sketch, you know, an idea that I want to do to some of my more abstract pieces coming up. And then I'll run the computer, again, that 3D program in Illustrator, so I start getting a feel before I even build it, what it's going to look like in 3D. So I draw my components, I'm sorry, going too fast. And I'll draw it flat as well, maybe in this case, to see what it's going to look like on that certain profile. And then this is the final piece here that I built. It's called Reinventing the Wheel. And then what I also incorporated here was a QR code. QR code, as you see a lot of things, and you see it on the brochure, it's called a quick response code. You know, when you scan that with a smartphone or an iPad, you know, that has an app on it, you know, you can control it to do something. So what I did in this case, I added a little QR code to this art piece. I'm not sure if anybody actually noticed it was there, but it was there. And I created a website that it would go to. So if they actually went to that art piece, scanned it with their phone, they would have gone to a website that I created that talks about the piece and about how I built it.
Where is
It shows
that
you the different
piece?
stages. Where is it now?
Yeah.
It's at home, but it's actually going to be at the Hunter Art Museum in October at a show
Oh,
for a
cool.
few months. It'll be there. Again, I had a sketch of an idea that I wanted, so again, something on paper. I must have been thinking about my 401k plan that day too. Because then I'll do a line drawing of that. Again, I did a 3D illustration of it as well. See, I can add reflection as well here. Just to show you how it works. See, if I wanted to turn that, see, it shows you here. See how I'm turning the cube, and that's controlling this cube here. Not the cube, that's not a cube there, not the triangle. And there it is there. Again, the 3D model of it. And here's the final product. It's called Splinter.
Oh.
Yeah, it's made out of wood and some aluminum. I don't know, a few years ago there was this thing at New Hope where they had like a contest where these mules were. You see some mules in New Hope still that are painted. And there was like a contest where you know, they wanted people to come up with ideas of how to design them. So they did pick one of mine, but it wasn't produced, but they did pick it. And so anyway, what I was doing, I had the line drawing, and then I started thinking about how to texture it. But then I had it on the computer, so I was able to change the texture to see how I wanted to do it. So as you can see, it's changing there. And I can easily manipulate to see where I liked it, and then I might have added the little blue eye up there as well. And I think I changed the texture again, so I got more like pyramids in there. So that's what's a nice tool about the computer. You know, I can instantly visualize something that maybe I want to do before I actually have to do it. This is a little different way how I use the computer. On the left was something I started building, but then I wanted to enter it into art show, but I wasn't done yet, right? So I had to send them slides, but I wasn't ready to send it, but I wanted to get it there. So I cheated. I scanned it. I took a digital image of it. I went onto Photoshop. I'm sorry. Let's go back a second. And I cleaned it up. You can see all the wood. There's like wood putty here and stuff. It's a mess still, right? It's not done yet. See the gray spots. I went into Photoshop and fixed it all up to make it look clean. And then I even went a little bit further. I added some more line artwork, and I painted the canvas. Actually, that's an artwork. I texture mapped it onto that canvas. I completed it. I sent it into the show, you know. But then later on, afterwards, I did finish it. The funny story about that piece, it got rejected from one show. And then I entered it again when it was done as another show and won first place in the show. So it shows you how subjective it is, right? One show rejected it, another show accepted it. So. And somebody bought it too. So it's funny. So if you enter any art shows, don't get discouraged about anything because it doesn't really mean anything. I'm sorry. I don't want to. And we're almost done, actually, just real fast. Again, computers with sharing, like I said, I'm able to share information with everybody. You know, email's been great for me. You know, I don't have to go anywhere. I just sit in front of my computer. I don't have to drive anywhere. The other day I was working with somebody, she was teaching me something, how to use WordPress. You know, about WordPress is a way to build websites as well as blogging. And then we did some Skyping on the, you know, we just did Skyping. You know, I was able to share her computer screen. I'm going to teach her how to use Photoshop. You know, we don't have to leave our computers. You know, obviously Facebook, YouTube, great ways to share information. Access to files. You know, I use Dropbox. Anybody familiar with Dropbox or iCloud? You know, if I'm somewhere else, I'm not on my computer, I'm at another computer. If I leave my files on Dropbox or on the iCloud somewhere, I can access it. I don't even have to even carry you know, a USB stick with me anymore. My files are just there, which is so convenient. And also multitasking, as you can see, as I'm working on this presentation here, which is PowerPoint. You know, I have others. You know, I have my other programs open up here, just like this. And if you guys use Macintosh, maybe some of you do, I can have multiple applications open, so I can bounce back and forth. Like today, I was working on about 6 projects. I'm looking at emails. I'm going to Photoshop, going to Illustrator. You know, back and forth, and checking out my presentation for tonight. So, you know, it's great for multitasking. And stock photography, like I said, I like to use a lot. I use photographers sometimes, but there's so much nice stock photography out there. You know, there really is. You know, there's the strawberries from the brochure. I just to warn some people, oh, I go digital. I take my own camera. I might take a quick shot or something. You know, so you know, it's very instant, you know, and gratifying. But I recommend to everybody not to use Google Images. You know, it's convenient to go to Google, maybe for reference material, but those are low-res images in most cases. So you don't want it, people think they go to Google. Plus also, you have to be careful copyright issues. You don't want to take people's stuff from Google, depending on what it is. So that's why I put an X there. But I do use it for reference. So if I'm looking up something, you know, you can find hundreds and thousands of images, but it's not good for final products. So in summary, quickness to do, quickness to review, quickness to revise. So, you know, I can do all things quick. You know, if the client comes back to me to make revisions, most times I can turn it around within minutes, you know, if it's simple, you know. I don't hesitate to do it later because it's pretty spontaneous to do, as long as you build things properly. And equals more time to create. And remember, we all can publish, right? We all forget that nowadays, you know, with computers it's so easy to publish anything, you know. And, oh, you know what I did? I also made a QR code. I made a little website. Well, I made a website called Sweet Talk, but I was going to post this presentation on my Sweet Talk site, which I will do this evening. I haven't done that yet. So that QR code, if you scanned it, that's what that would do. So thank you. Does that help? Is that good?
Yeah, it's great. It's great. Let's turn the lights up and see if anybody has any questions to,
I have my iPad running here too. That was the samples of my book.
to ask Michael. Bill, you have a question?
So what gets lost?
What gets lost?
Everything is new and improved, okay?
Right, what gets
Away
lost?
From pen and pencil and ink and charcoal and all the rest of it. What gets lost?
Well, definitely, when I mentioned typesetting gets lost, I think people got lazy with typesetting. Typesetting is appreciating fonts and so forth, you know, you can see people, you know, also with dangers of computers is too, everybody thinks they're graphic artists now a lot too. You know, they think they have, you know, some applications like Publisher and stuff like that, they think they can start making it, which is sometimes it's fine, you know, to do that. But they may not appreciate like typefaces like that and so forth, you know. They may use the wrong typeface to go in there. You know. Again, I like doing stuff by hand still. I'm still you know, I still do my fine art work, so I still appreciate doing stuff by hand. You know, you know, what gets lost, I'm not sure. I think certain things don't illustrate as well. You know, some people do 3D illustration work that doesn't look as nice, I think. It looks a little cold looking. You know, it's a little mechanical.
And probably those all-nighters doing the ShopRite layout with the chemicals and all that, you probably don't miss that.
I don't miss that part. But I think you asked me what gets lost. You're asking the opposite, actually, right? You're asking what gets lost. Yeah. I think it's good knowing. That's why I wanted to show the stuff in the past. I think it's good to appreciate that as well. Does that help answer your question, I guess? A little bit?
Sort of,
Okay.
you know, I mean.
You know, it's subjective too, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
I think it's a fabulous question.
Well, I mean, I still use I don't still use the slide rule, but I know how to run.
Right, yeah. Right, with pictographs too. I like still drawing by hand on my pen. I'm sorry.
What would you say is the biggest mistake of the folks who are putting together graphics for a video presentation? What makes you cringe?
What do you mean if I'm working on a video with
If you're
someone?
seeing someone else's work, what are the rookie mistakes that folks are making left and right?
See a lot of typos lately.
Yeah.
People got very lazy with, you know, I make typos too. I think we're so fast doing stuff like that. But also like using too many typefaces like on a document, like people get too crazy with too many typefaces. You keep a document simple. You know, if you use maybe like 2 or 3 fonts per page, you know. Does that help? You know, what else? I mean, it's funny you said that because I do see a lot of things when I see something from other graphic artists, for example, like that I see as sloppy.
More people are making videos now, and to be more sophisticated with that, you know, you want to incorporate graphic elements. But the filmmaker is not a graphic artist, you know, even though their work is visual. What are some pitfalls you would think filmmakers might be able to avoid?
If they want to use graphic arts, or if they want to do it themselves.
They have to do it themselves. And
Are you a filmmaker?
Of course. I'm not trying to squeeze free advice.
I have a feeling. No, that's okay. No, that's good. Well, I would think it would help to get a good background on using some of the applications, I think, so you know how to use them. If you're going to be using Photoshop or Illustrator to grade those things, be aware of the resolution of the stuff that you're doing. Do you have a fine art background a little bit, or
Nothing graphic.
what kind of graphics would you be using in the video? So I get a sense.
Oh, I mean, just fonts and lower thirds, maybe some graphs to illustrate charts. And
Okay, well, I would say, so the general rule, I think, keep things simple.
Yeah.
Don't get out of hand, don't go crazy. Just because you have access to things, don't go overboard. Keep your graphs, if you're doing graphs and charts, keep it nice, clean, and simple. Tell the story. Not a lot of colors, don't go crazy with a lot of colors. Unless you really know what you're doing with it, just keep it simple, especially with the fonts too. Does that help a little bit?
Yeah.
Very much.
Okay.
So does it cut down on the number of iterations with your clients when you're doing this, like the medical illustrations?
Right.
It appears to me that what's critical is what's kept, but also a lot of background noise you have to get rid of in order to clearly illustrate what you're trying to, what the procedure is or whatever.
Right. Yeah. That's
Okay.
true.
With all the tools you have now, does it cut down on the number of times you have to iterate with clients to make sure that what you're producing is what they want?
Well, that comes from me doing the right job, first of all, if I have to understand what they're doing. So, right, if I do the right job, then it's not going to go back and forth too much. But because, like I mentioned the word layers before a lot, so if I build something in the right form, the right fashion, if they make changes to me, then it won't be a big issue. But do they come back more often? Depends on the client. You know, some clients are going to be more picky, right, and they come back a lot. But it won't be a big issue for me because if I did it right in the first place with building layers and making it modular enough, so, you know, if I made a flat image and they want to make changes, then it's going to be a real pain for me to do that. But it's more flexible. But do they come back more? Probably overall, probably more so because maybe they know it's a little bit easier too, you know, nowadays, you know. They're used to me spoiling them, or they get spoiled.
Yes.
So,
Where do you see your industry headed in the next few years?
in the graphic arts part, or fine art graphic arts part, I think it's just going to be getting more online purposes, you know, it's going to be just...
Is it moving toward the tablet, or the iPad?
What do you mean, like, well, like I ended up with about being much more like on the iCloud, I guess, that kind of thing, you know, just everybody's gonna have access to everything, you know. But I think still, things still gonna get printed though. We still do a lot of printing. You'd think printers would be like dying out, but they still, like my full-time job, we print a lot. We do a lot. I have 20 catalogs I produce with them, so we print thousands of those, so. It's not dying yet, the catalog. People still like stuff in their hand, but I think the next generation, I think it's going to be much more all online. And videos too, since you do videos. Huh?
And people like, when they're looking at it, they want to click into it and then go to a video and,
Right.
you know, like go from one type of media to the next, probably.
Yeah, that's true.
I would imagine.
Yeah. It's going to be all one.
On the fine arts side, do you wait for contests to submit your artwork, or do you have other?
Well, yeah, I'm not represented by any galleries at this time, so I'll just look for different opportunities to submit just for fun, you know. Yeah. If I was doing full-time, I might just do it. So I'm not a full-time fine artist. If I was, I probably would do it differently. But it's sort of like a part-time thing for me, when I can do time. So.
Do you
That's what I do. I'm sorry?
Gallery owner saying, hey, I got some stuff here, you want some, or do you have to wait for like a special event?
I look for different shows that are coming up, like exhibitions that have, you know, jury art exhibitions and so forth. I saw you sketching me first, so you're a fine artist, right? I saw you sketching something. Were you sketching something?
I mean, I doodle a lot.
Oh, okay, okay.
Doodle you.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, right here.
Oh, cool. So excellent. Nice.
There's you right here.
Oh my goodness.
Wait.
Here I am, terrible posture and all, thank you very much.
Hold on, hold that up. I want to get a picture of that. That's great. And
Yeah, sorry everybody else.
But anyway, I would suggest going to some of the art museums and so forth, and you know, put your name in there, and they'll contact you. Get on different mailing lists.
Oh, just
Like the 100 Art Center is one of them. Go over there and get on their mailing list, you know, and they'll contact you when there's art shows. They go to their website, Artsbridge, right? Of course.
Let me write that down.
Okay.
Right, do you live locally?
100
Yeah.
Watercolor Society.
All right.
I
Oh,
live from Canada.
You're from Canada, but you live
Festival?
here?
Well, I'm
That's
here
right.
for summer.
Oh, you're here for the summer.
Yeah, and yeah, paint, but I was gonna bring my book, but I thought
Okay.
I didn't, so.
oh, that'd be great.
Yeah,
Oh,
maybe
well,
next time.
When we're done, we'll write down some names for you.
Oh, okay,
Of
cool.
places.
Oh, here's your
Oh,
glasses.
nice. For where there's home.
I have a question I'd like to ask someone. Well, two questions. One is, what was your first computer? Do you remember when you first stumbled upon a computer? And
I used a
what were your-
computer at Montclair State. It was just like a Texas Instrument for doing some CAD drawings.
And what was your first? Was there a moment where you went, "This is going to change everything"?
Well, did I think that at the time?
Yeah. What did you think when you first came across?
I don't think it was anything big like that, but I guess I just thought it was convenient. You know, it was fun to do at the time. I just thought it was fun. And then my first job, I started doing some more CAD drawings and stuff like that. Did I think it was going to change the world? I don't know if I thought that. Is that what you're looking for, I guess?
No, I'm just wondering, because
it's funny how it changed. Yeah, it's funny. Yeah,
a lot of people, you know, my age are, we've seen this incredible progression
Right.
from the first IBM PC to the, you know, the iPad.
Right, yeah.
And it's just been, it's hard for us to figure it all out sometimes. And I'm just curious, because your industry has been flipped completely inside out and upside down, and
Right.
you've obviously dealt with it very well. But you've had to learn so much, I would think.
Yeah, but I guess it's not hard for me to learn it for some reason. Some people do have trouble learning some computer stuff, but it's been Pretty easy
Part
for
two of
me.
the question. What advice would you have if you were 20 again, just coming out of art school, to somebody?
Oh, and it was
Right
like
now, you're just a...
I would still say learn stuff by hand. I always tell people, younger people, I said always draw by hand first. I don't tell them to draw on the computer. It's
Interesting.
always better. That's actually said a good point. I always tell people that it's important for me when I try to sell my business that I am a fine artist because I know how to draw by hand and I know how to do things by hand versus just on the computer because I'm not lazy. You know, it could make you a little bit lazy.
So you're on the right track.
Right.
Yes. Another point to me on it. Yeah.
Because it's more important to see versus just using fun because this could become like a game.
Right.
Like toys. But you need to know how to use your toys. Right? You know what I mean? There's like too many toys in there.
Yes.
What?
I agree with you. I'm a poet and I write everything on a yellow legal pad before I put it on my computer.
There you go. Right. Yeah, it's much more flexible, I think, too. Right. And even for the video, like you said, you do storyboards and stuff. I guess you do storyboards. Do you a little bit? Or?
Scripts. by
Scripts,
hand and
okay.
stuff, yeah.
Do you have professional business? Because sometimes we use video artists for different things that projects on. Maybe give me a card or something when you're done.
Yeah, and we have a kind of part-time, kind of a hobby kind of thing, but.
See, what I showed you tonight is probably just like maybe like 50% of what I do. I get involved with I get involved with video stuff too with different clients, different things.
What inspires your fine art locally?
My fine art, which look the abstract stuff or the watercolor stuff.
Either or, is there anything about Hunterdon County that really
Well, again, I do the watercolor just for fun, more like that. It's not really my passion of doing those watercolors because they're sort of traditional when I do those. But they're fun to do. It kind of keeps me technically skilled by when I do the watercolors and so forth. I mean, Hunterdon County's nice and all, but it's not. I know some people focus on Hunterdon County. They like to make all these barns and landscapes and so forth, which is nice. But I like doing the more abstract stuff, the more like a poet kind of a tale, as you were saying. So that's my intention. Does that help a
Reinventing
little
the
bit?
wheel.
I'm sorry?
Like reinventing the wheel.
That's right, exactly.
It's kind of a more cubist approach.
Right. Any other questions, or is that helpful a little bit? I hope I answered your questions. If I'm vague, I'm sorry.
Well, another hidden treasure in Hunterdon, right here.
Well,
Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
That's really cool.